Authentic, important conversations help us understand life and relationships better and make us feel connected. Those connections build a community where you belong because your contributions matter. That's why Shelley and Toby are bringing you News and Views. Join us to explore ideas, news, opinions, experiences, and real-life stories. Live on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Come chat about life with your friends.
Hi, Fenn.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm a little scattered at the moment.
Oh, well, why don't you say hellos and I will take it from there.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to News and Views. I'm your host, Shelley Carney.
And I'm your co-host, Toby Eunice, and my microphone is right in the front there. Let me make a little bit of adjustment there. Okay. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking a recap of the Fenn probate case based on yours truly's opinions, I guess. But I'm going to do it just like we did back in college. I'm going to give you a presentation just like I used to give in college when we had to study these cases. So let's see. I do want to open up the slide presentation there. And I can click here, right? Can you click here?
Click where?
Can you click on the presentation to advance it?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Can I?
I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Hold on. I got to.
So today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. And it's actually spelled Wednesday. And usually it's Wednesday.
Wow, Wednesday. I thought I fixed that.
But yeah, that's
the
today.
right
Today's hump day. We'll just go with that. And we have lots of announcements.
So first thing, yesterday I was talking to Shiloh about the purchases that I made at the last Hinman auction. And I told him that the title of the auction included a comma part 1. I said, when is part 2? And he said sometime in September. So there's going to be a second Hinman auction. He actually told me that he was the one that packaged several of the pieces, including the 2 that I purchased. So that made me feel good. So, but he said there's going to be some more at the auction in September, which I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah.
Sally, you want to tell us about the content quiz? You know what? I'm sorry. I didn't put this over on my screen here, so I can't hit the link.
Okay.
So, but you can tell them about it.
Okay.
And I'll put it in the chat room.
Okay. The content quiz is 3 simple questions asking people what kind of content they prefer. That way we can look at your answers and adjust our programming to better fit the needs of our greater audience. And the last 2 questions of the 5 questions, there's 3 questions plus 2 more. And it's kind of like the holy hand grenade. And anyway, the last 2 questions are optional, and it's just your name and your email address. But the first 3 questions are about content and what type of content you prefer. So if you would very helpfully go there and answer those questions for us. And again, your name and email address are optional. We just have a great interest in what type of content everybody wants for our future shows.
And just out of curiosity, because somebody's probably asking this in their own head right now, what are you going to do with that, the results of that survey?
We're going to adjust our future shows to just make them better.
That's it. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's all it's about. Giving you the best kind of content of whatever it is that you want most.
Okay.
Quiz.ajkmedia.studio.
I did put it in there.
And then what's next?
You.
Me. I have news. I haven't even told Toby yet.
What?
Yeah. 2 hours ago, we were told my mom's coming home on Friday.
What?
So we've been moving furniture around and going a little crazy for the last 2 hours. So that's why I'm a little scattered. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations to you and her. I'm glad she's made enough progress that they're going to let her home. And what we were talking about an hour and a half ago. So it happened between then and now.
Hmm.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay for you. Yay for your mom.
Yes. Well, we hope it's a yay. We don't know if
Yeah,
we're
we don't know
ready,
yet.
but
Right.
we're going to have to get ready.
So
We
it's
get two
Friday of
days.
this week, day
Yeah.
after tomorrow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And in the meantime, I've been working on a new course called the Livecast Lifestyle, Livecast Life. It's basically a companion to our book that we've just put out. And we have a book, a workbook, and now we'll have a course dedicated to teaching people the Livecast lifestyle and what's involved in uh, live streaming, podcasting, and blogging every week.
And what can they do about
And we'll be presenting one of the lessons from this course as a sneak preview in tomorrow's show at 1 o'clock Mountain Time on Messages and Methods. So there's the link if you want to go set a reminder. And if you are interested in getting this course and being one of the very first people to try it out, you will get a very special discount, family and friends and family discount if you sign up on our waiting list and say, yes, I am interested in that course. Let me be in that friends and family club. And that's just go to course.livecast.life and get signed up for that.
It's a great course. She's done an amazing job of putting it all together, and we'll be recording it over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll make it available to you guys, and you guys will get the discount for the course. So, so I don't know what you guys are. I don't even know what are you referring to? What they're talking about some Fenn stuff that happened, but I don't know where they got the info. Okay, so I wanted to share some pictures with you because I finally did get to go fishing yesterday after the trial concluded, and I got some photos of it, including this one of me out of the river. Now you can tell I didn't take that photo; there was somebody with me, and I'll share that with you as well. But before that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to share some fan mail, and this is fan mail from Waveseeker. Waveseeker said, "Toby, stop making creepy comments to Shelly. Shelly is married to Kevin, not you. No wonder you're alone." That's Waveseeker. Thank you, Waveseeker, for that bit of
I
advice.
told Kevin about it, and he said, maybe you guys should have a YouTube channel just about preserving our marriage and let people write in to keep on doing things and saying things to preserve our marriage because, we've only been married 38 years. And we're
Right.
probably going to break up any minute.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have a lot of pictures, just a couple, and I put them in an album. So we'll just go through those real quickly. So this, as you guys know, is my good friend Jens Esser, a documentarian. We talk a lot, we exchange emails a lot, and we text a lot. But I set a new rule for Jens. After text number 3, I call him, because if you just text with him, he just texts all night. And I'm not a big fan of texting. But we met right after the conclusion of the trial, and he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm planning to go up on the Rio Grande to do some fishing. And he said, oh, I want to go with you so I can take some pictures and make some videos and do some interviews. And I'm going fishing, Fenn. I don't want to take pictures and do interviews. And of course, once Fenn gets something in his head, you can't.
Jens?
I'm sorry. Jens. Did I say Fenn's?
Mm-hmm, twice.
Yeah. Once Jens gets something in his head, you can't convince him otherwise. So he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going up on the Rio Grande, just above Pilar, New Mexico. And he said, okay. And he said he had to pick up Masuda, his wife, and they were going to go to the hotel, and she was not feeling well. And that's enough about, I won't tell you more about that story. But he would catch up with me, and he said, just text me when you get in place. And I said, Jens, there is no signal up there in the canyon. There's no way to reach out to you. You're just going to have to come and find me. Just get yourself to Pilar. So I figured, okay, he figured that out. He has his Jeep with him, and he knows how to use a map, etc. So anyway, this is the fishing day, and I got there too early for it to be good trout fishing. It was probably 2:00 in the afternoon by the time I got there. That's terrible trout fishing time. So I always use the opportunity to take pictures, do some other things, kind of explore. And I got up on the bridge, took this image that goes downriver. There was one or more Boy Scout troops, so it was very busy upriver. Just over to this side is where the main campground is. So they were up in there. And then there were these buses, like 50-foot buses with glass windows filled with people. And somebody had planned a party up there in one of the campgrounds. And I passed it on the way down. I didn't see it on the way up, but they were having this big party, and they had people on rafts, and they were just having a good time on the river. Anyway, lots of traffic, lots of good time. So every time I go back, and I'm going to show you a picture of this in just a minute. Every time I go back, there's a rock up there with this little petroglyph, and I always go back and see, is it still there? You have to look for it. It's kind of hidden. You have to look for it to see if it's still there. And I always wondered, did somebody find it and graffiti up over it or chip it out or whatever? It's still there in good shape. I got the first image of that back in 2013 on a trip to Pilar that I made, and I've gone back every time since to see if it's actually there. And of course, the cactus flowers are in bloom at springtime. They'll be in bloom through mid-July, and then they kind of die off, but they're just beautiful colors. And there's this contrast between the beautiful flowers and then the cactus spines just behind it. And as you're taking a picture, you're moving back and forth. You're trying to get your camera closer, and you have to be careful because eventually you're going to get yourself stuck by a cactus, but you can't help but take the pictures because they're so pretty. This is one of my favorites because it's kind of a magenta color of flower. So that's me out on the river, and I'll tell you what happened. So what happened was, I'm out on the river. You can see the shadows have fallen. I'm out on the river minding my own business, frustrated because the wind is blowing at 20 to 25 miles an hour, and it was blowing upstream. So if you wanted to cast across, you had to cast upstream in order for the line to fall across from you and then let it flow downriver. So the wind was and I use a 4-pound monofilament line, so it's very lightweight. It was just getting blown all over. All of a sudden, I'm standing there and I hear a drone, and I know what a drone sounds like because I fly drones. And I start looking up and around. Sooner or later, this Mavic comes. This DJI Mavic Air comes floating down about 20 feet away from me and about 20 feet up in the air. And I'm going like, hey, another drone guy on the river, never thinking it was Jens. I just thought it was some other crazy person with a drone guy. I waved at them, and I started to take out my phone so I get a picture of the drone so I would have a picture for you guys, but it flew off. Well, I started moving upriver and back upriver to a spot that I know is pretty predictable once the mountains, the sun gets behind the mountains and starts throwing shade on it. That's when the fish start eating. So I went upriver, and when I got there, I stopped at the willows, and there was Jens coming down with his camera. And he wanted me to walk forward, and he was trying to interview me. He was the drone. He was looking for me with the drone. He had actually found his way up there, but not without help. So, but he did find his way up there. So we spent, I don't know, a half hour doing documentary style, answering questions and catching fish. He told me, catch a fish. So I caught a little baby brown. I mean, it was just the tiniest fish I caught of the day. And, but that was enough for him to, make some video out of it. I told him, don't you dare show that to people. So he was in good spirits, but the reason he got up there is because of this lady. This lady is Veronica. She's Gallatin
Ghost.
Is it Gallatin Ghost?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's like Galloping Gallatin. I don't know. You guys tell me. She told me she told me her name. It's like Gallatin Ghost or Galloping Gallatin, something like that. Who is it? Gallatin Ghost. Okay. She's got flaming red hair, so you can see her from 100 feet off. She helped us take some of the pictures of me and Jens. And as we were moving, she'd carry one of my, I had both fishing rods. I was spin casting. I didn't take my fly rod out just because of the wind. It would have been miserable to be casting into the wind like that. So she was there, and we spent the rest of the afternoon, me faking like I was fishing. I don't know. I really didn't get a chance to fish. I was just throwing the line in so Jens could get more video and stuff. and we did a lot of picture taking. So it was a lot of fun. It was great to see them, and uh, it was just fun and a pleasant surprise to see them. And then Jens has been bugging me to fly his FPV, his first person view drone. This is a new drone by DJI, and it's faster than the Dickens. The sport mode on it has a normal mode and a sport mode, but it's fast and it does crazy things. And you have to be very adept at flying a drone. It doesn't have the stabilization that the Mavic or any of the Phantom or any of the other drones, and it doesn't have the camera is not stabilized. So when the drone turns, that camera turns with it. But I've always wanted to try one because I see it and the price is down to around $1,100. And I keep saying to myself, I got to have that drone. And so he promised me that he's going to let me fly his. And so we sat down, put the goggles on. You do goggles. And my first reaction, I was standing when I first put them on, and I took off and it went up. And I thought, well, what if you have a fear of heights? What happens then? And that I didn't. But the flying the drone normally, like, made me like when you first stand up real quickly and it makes you kind of dizzy. I had to sit down to start with. He said, yeah, that he had the same problem. It took him about a week and a half to get rid of the effects. But once you get that, you're fine. It's beautiful. You get this real sense that you're on top of you're sitting on this drone, and it's wonderful flying. It's very, very sensitive, and it's very, very unstable. And so I flew it for a little while, and then I was going to come in for a landing, and I guess I was coming in a little too hot. So Jens pulled it away, grabbed the controller away from me. So I thought to myself, well, maybe if I could just get the goggles. And it turns out that DJI stopped manufacturing the goggles for any other aircraft but the FPV. And they don't work. The firmware doesn't allow them to work with the other drones, which kind of saddened me because I would love to have them for my drone, the goggles for my drone to fly it that way. Because instead of looking down at the control, you don't have to look at the controller to fly the drones. That comes from just doing it all the time. You learn what to push, where the buttons are, everything. You could fly it blindfolded if you had to. Not that you want to do that, but with the controller, you can fly it blindfolded. What you get with this is the view instead of looking down at the screen. And I have the DJI smart controller, which has an embedded screen, and it's about that big, but that's what you have to do to see what the camera is seeing. This one, you've got what the camera is seeing right up at your eye level. And it's just amazingly beautiful and fun. And if anybody of DJI gets back to producing goggles for the other drones, I'm going to buy them as soon as I get there, because it was just amazing. So that was it. We did photos. Let me get back on the screen. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that Peacock Jack. So,
Jack.
What did I say?
You said Peacock Jack.
Oh, Packer Jack. I don't know.
You're funny.
Your mom's moving back in, and it's made me nervous.
Made me nervous.
Yeah. So Jens told an osprey to fly down and catch a brown trout once the bigger. He's funny. He's a good guy. He's just fun to be around, and you can tease him, and he's fun to be around, and he's good for my ego because he always says nice things about me. I'd like having him around for no other reason than that. Sorry, Peacock Jack. I didn't mean that. I meant Packer Jack. Okay. So that's pictures for the day. So let's get back to the presentation here. What else? Photos. You want to talk about the giveaway?
I'm not sure what we're doing. We kind of went off in a different direction.
So we can do the same direction that we've been doing. But did you see the last slide?
No.
The last slide says tonight's competition is, go ahead and look at the last slide. Take a look at that first.
Okay.
Ranger Jack calls him Peacock Jack. Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to do that, or you want to go back to doing it the old way?
I want to do that.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's talk about what we're giving away.
Okay.
Wait, I have them. Go ahead.
Toby's giving things away. I don't know. Show us what you're giving away, Toby.
All right. So you have the choice. Tonight's giveaway includes the choice of the Livecast Life book, our latest book, Gypsy's Kiss, our oldest book. You can get a copy of Aunt Lucy's cookbook. It's not a cookbook; it's a cook pamphlet. Okay, plus some Sean through. My daughter Sean through in some muertos and retablo paintings, and then or you have a choice of Aunt Lucy's favorite holiday recipes. Now they're also New Mexican, but these were her favorite holidays. They will include, for example, bizcochitos because we used to get bizcochitos at holidays, and that's a card of Santa Corona that Sean painted for me. I have one on my wall. Plus, you get, I don't have them out. You get two postcards, and 2 challenge coins. So that's my bare finger.
Bud finger.
Okay, so that's the giveaway. And do you want to tell them what the challenge is now so they can start planning for it, or do you want to save it for later?
So we decided we were having trouble coming up with trivia questions, and we were like, okay, the same people keep winning over and over again. So let's do something where everybody can play, and we'll just pick at random, right? So tonight we're going to ask everybody who wants to participate to tell us a story in 10 words or less about what's the silliest thing that you've done that got you into trouble. So, for instance, I found this question on the radio, and somebody had called in and said she got in trouble because she was wearing a T-shirt that said "Swim faster, get naked," and she was wearing it in high school, and they thought that was inappropriate, so they sent her to the principal. She thought that was pretty silly. So, if you have a story of something silly that got you into trouble, save that for the end of the show, but think about it and try to condense it down into 10 words or less. And we'll ask you for your stories at the end.
So what was the story that got you into trouble?
Well, the most recent one I can think of is I wouldn't bring my mom home for the weekend, and she got mad at me. So I got in trouble for that.
What did she say to you?
She said, "You're just as bad as the rest of them," because nobody would bring her home. But now we're bringing her home, so she can't be mad anymore.
That was so cute. You're just as bad as the rest of them. I'm out here living with you. My husband is alone. My business partner.
Everybody's alone. You guys are together. I'm alone.
Yeah. So the worst, I have a lot of them. I've got a lifetime full of them, but the most memorable one was when I was going to the seminary. They had put me into the seminary before they sent me to school because they thought that was going to cure all my rebellious problems. And we were during the first week of seminary, you go to the monastery in Pecos for a retreat, a week-long retreat. And part of that retreat is you remain completely silent. Well, you guys know how hard it is for me to be completely silent.
And you were how old?
I was 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Never heard of such a thing, sending a 12-year-old to something like that.
I was going to be a priest, believe it or not. Anyway, so I got tired of being silent, and there was a gate separating the monastery from the river. And I decided one day just to go out of the gate and look at the river, but something overwhelmed me, and I yelled at the top of my lungs, "I want to be fishing for trout." And there happened to be a priest, one of the priests that ran the operation, coming around the corner. So the next day, they had a little conference with me in one of the offices there, and they told me that they didn't think I would make an appropriate priest. So they tossed me out. Boom, back home to my mother, who wasn't happy.
I think a 12-year-old is really ready to be a priest.
Anyway. I didn't think I was. I had a whole life ahead of me.
I think so.
I had Vietnamese communists I had to kill.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, back to where was I? Presentation-wise.
Presentation.
Let me go back to presentation. All right. So we got the giveaway in 10 words or less. Your most the thing you did that got you most in trouble? I don't know. I may have won. I don't think they lost. Uh, Long way. They were probably pretty happy with that. Okay, so I promised you today I was going to give you a recap of the Fenn probate case trial, but I'm going to do it in the order that we were required to do it back in college and pre-law, and um, so I am not going to cover what I'm not going to do, because I think Christy has done a real good job of it, is go into the details of literally everything that happened. She made, I don't know, at least a legal pad, both back and front, of notes. I did make some notes in my notebook, but they were nowhere near as copious as hers. But I wanted to do it in the context of how I understood a trial to be, a trial to go, and what happened. So if you have questions about anything that was said, ask them. And if I have notes related to that, I'll respond. Or if you have questions, because what I want to do, I want to know why Toby doesn't support 9 because I don't believe there is evidence, any more evidence. Wow, this is just going to get me in trouble, guys. I don't believe there's any more evidence.
Once again, another silly thing that gets you into trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll bet you none of you have ever had Cynthia yell at you. So I don't think there is any more evidence for 9 Mile Hold than there is. I think just like there is a lot of confirmation bias, and I'm a master of all of that. That's how I ended up in New Mexico. So I can't criticize it. The evidence that I need are the coordinates that Jack Stoof provided Ranger Davis. That's what I'm waiting for. Until then, it's all conjecture. Okay, so we're going to talk about how a normal trial flows. Then we're going to talk about how the difference in this trial and why it was different. Then we're going to talk about Mccracken's theory of the case, Summers' theories of the case. Well, I do want to talk about Mccracken's perfect solve, because that hit a, what did they say it when something hits you? That hit a funny bone for me. And then we'll talk about Summers' theory of the case, Mccracken's evidence, and I should have put evidence in quotes because I think that was a problem. I'm going to try not to analyze Mccracken. I think that should be left to a professional. But I guess what I can say about it is he's his own worst enemy. Okay, I'll stop right there. Mccracken's evidence, Summers' evidence, the next step, and what I think Mccracken's intentions are based on what he's posting recently in the in his own forum. Okay, so let's talk about a normal trial. So this is how a normal trial goes. First of all, there is a docket call, meaning the parties come into the courtroom independent of any audience or viewers, and they have a conversation with the judge, and they kind of set out the rules of engagement, basically. Now, remember, these are all defined by law, right? By law, by statute, by rules. The federal rules of criminal procedure, federal rules of criminal procedure, federal rules of court procedure, and then there's state rules, that are almost duplicates of them. So there's not a lot of room to debate this stuff. The judge will say, nope, that's not in the book. We're going this way. Then there are opening statements, usually first by the plaintiff and then followed by the defendant. Then the plaintiff's attorney starts calling witnesses or presenting evidence. Usually they'll start by presenting some evidence. Your Honor, I would like to enter this piece of evidence into, this document into evidence and have it numbered. They'll ask the defendant's attorney if there are any objections. If he says no, then they enter into evidence, and then he starts calling his witnesses, and he starts examining them, questioning each of the witnesses. In order to do that and comparing it to the evidence. So if they were to say, Toby Eunice, you at one time had a solution that included the warm waters of the regulations in the state of New Mexico, and I'd say yes, and they'd say, do you have any evidence that exists? I'd show them that they would show, my attorney would show the warm waters regulations. That was evidence that it existed. Right, only that the rules existed, not necessarily that it matched the poem. All right, so that all happens. Then the defendant's attorney gets to cross-examine those same witnesses. right? Each time the plaintiff examines, then the defendant's attorney gets to re-examine. After the or cross-examine. After the defending attorney gets cross-examines, the plaintiff's attorney gets something called the redirect. He can go back and say, wait a minute, he asked you a question and you said this, you told me this, which is true, right? So that's called the redirect. Generally, at this point in the trial, if it's a short one or long, they take a recess after this. And it could be 15 minutes or it could be a week, right? Then they come back, and then the defendant's attorney goes through the same process, presents their evidence, usually documents. Now, you got to remember, they've all submitted this to the court and to each other in advance. They have told the court and the opposing attorney who their witnesses are going to be and what their exhibits for evidence are going to be. All right. So everybody knows who's playing the game. There can't be any surprises. If there is a surprise, Your Honor, I have a new piece of evidence, a new document that I'd enter into evidence. The judge will ask the plaintiff if they object. They'll give them the opportunity to object, and then they can decide whether or not. And it could be the kind of thing where it's a 20-page document. I don't know. I haven't read it, Your Honor. So the court will say, well, give them a chance to read it and we'll discuss it tomorrow, right? So you can't, the court doesn't like being surprised. That's why even in this case, there were several binders, one of which that the judge had, the Mccracken had, Mr. Mccracken had, and Mr. Summer had. There were 3-ring binders full of all these exhibits, all these documents that represented exhibits and evidence. So then the defendant's attorney does the same thing, presents their evidence for approval by the judge. The judge will always give the opposing attorney the opportunity to object because, like I said, they've already seen the evidence or the document before it's produced into evidence. And the judge will ask, why are you objecting? He has to explain why. And then the judge can either grant the objection or sustain the objection or overrule it. So they go through that. Then the plaintiff's attorney gets to cross-examine. The defendant's attorney gets to redirect. There's a recess. Then they do something called a recall. And what happens then is both the plaintiff and the defendant's attorney get the opportunity to do little cleanups. Like, do you have any other witnesses? Do you have any other exhibits that you'd like to object to, et cetera, et cetera? And then there are closing arguments, recess, and then the decision of the court. That's how it normally goes. Well, this one was different because Mccracken didn't have an attorney. Now, I got to tell a little story about that. Mccracken didn't have an attorney because soon after Mccracken's deposition, his attorney sat down with him and said, "You didn't tell me everything. And I'm very worried and I'm imagining this, but this is how it usually goes. I'm very worried that we're not in the same place on this case. We're not on the same level in this case." And Mccracken said, "No, it's my way or the highway." And the attorney said, "Okay, well, it's the highway." Well, an attorney can't walk away from a case that's already in the court without asking the court's permission. He has to ask the court, he or she has to ask the court to recuse them from defending the plaintiff, supporting the plaintiff or the defendant, whichever. So he did. And I think I showed you those motions where he made a motion to be recused from the defense of Mr. Mccracken's defense or acting in Mr. Mccracken's behalf. And there's a motion of the court granting it. So at that point, Mccracken started acting as his own attorney. And that's perfectly legal. The court allows it. It's called pro se. The plaintiff is acting pro se on his own behalf. Okay? On his or her own behalf. So he made it that far. So that changes how the trial is structured. Now, the other point that I wanted to make is I noticed yesterday, and I went back and checked, there was a difference between the exhibits and the statements he was making as evidence with what was in Carl Summers' record of what he thought he was going to have to object to and defend. And so there were some things that I believe were said in Mccracken's deposition that Mccracken, whether by the advice of attorney or his own reconciliation of his issues, decided not to take to trial. He said them in the deposition, but didn't show them in the way of evidence at trial. Now, we're going to talk about Mccracken's evidence in just a little bit. So I wondered what it was. And what happened is, between the time he took his deposition and probably with the advice of the attorney that was representing him at that time, he took out some of the uglier stuff. And I'm sure that you probably know, as a result of, I know that Christie had mentioned some of them, but it was obvious that what he had done is he hadn't brought that ugly stuff to trial, but Carl Sommer was wise enough in a way to bring it back up in some ways. And Mccracken, rather than saying that, I think he tried one time, that's not part of this trial anymore. And Sommer would point out, it was part of your deposition, and the deposition is part of this trial. So although he didn't bring it into the trial documents, the fact that he said these things in deposition made it part of the trial. And that was not good for Mr. Mccracken, because I'll show you in a minute, that's what caused him the most problems. So there were opening statements. Mccracken's was very short, less than 5 minutes. He started presenting what would be mostly his wrap up, because he was talking about the evidence. He didn't present what you should do in your opening statement is present your theory of the case. This is how I think this case should go. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Then Mr. Sommer got up, and he started by saying, I'm going to keep this real short. And he presented his theory of the case, and he did. It was probably 15 minutes max, if that. So then at any time, then what you would normally do is the plaintiff's attorney would start calling witnesses. Well, Mccracken didn't have an attorney, and he was his only witness. And the reason he was the only witness, and this is where it gets difficult to determine what Mr. Mccracken's reality is. He claimed right up until the day before the trial started that he was going to have witnesses in the form of, and I'm not going to mention their names, in the form of two women who could support what he was saying. But he never subpoenaed those women. You can't go to court. You can't go into a court as a witness without being subpoenaed. So when he was saying he was expecting my witnesses would say that, Mr. Sommer would say, well, then why didn't you subpoena them? The judge would say, you didn't subpoena them, right? So he never subpoenaed the witnesses that he wanted to be there. The witnesses did include these two women who were critical to his case, that over the time of the trial, you found out couldn't have possibly been critical to his case. If anything, they would have been damaging to his case. So the only witness on behalf of the plaintiff was Mccracken himself. Well, he's his own attorney. So basically, he went up into the witness stand and he started paging through what I believe were his 85 exhibits presented as evidence. Well, evidence has to be based in fact. And here's an example. Mr. Eunice, do you have a solution that included the definition of warm water salt in the Rio Chama? Yes, I do. It's at the bottom of El Vado Dam. That's not a fact, right? The fact is that the bottom of El Vado Dam is where warm water salt, but my opinion is that it's tied to the poem. So when I present it as my opinion, it's not evidence. It's not acceptable. And you have to answer it as fact. What are the facts? The facts are warm water salt is in the New Mexico fishing regulations. One of the locations at the bottom of El Vado Dam. After that, it becomes opinion. So in most of the 85 or so exhibits that he was presenting in support of his case as evidence, they were mostly opinions. They were not facts. They were his opinion. I believe this, right? He several times, I believe Forrest Fenn is alive. There are no facts to support that. That's an opinion. So as a result, every time he made one of these, I would say that I'll give a rough number, 85 to 90% of these things that he was presenting as evidence, Mr. Summer would stand up and say, "I object. That's not fact. That's opinion." And the Judge Matthew would ask Mr. Mccracken to respond. Well, he started out by saying, well, it's my opinion, therefore it's my opinion as fact in this case. So he tried to make this conversion between his opinions being facts because they were his opinions. And it was kind of a circular argument that didn't go real well. Well, what was happening was the judge started sustaining them, right? Meaning, yeah, you can't do that. So at this point, he was starting to lose, quote, evidence in support of his case. Well, it got to the point where after about 10 or 15 of these, Mr. Summer rose again, objection. The judge asked him, Mr. Summer, I'm going to ask you to sit down. We're just going to assume a blanket objection to each of these, and I will ask the witness to explain. Well, from that point forward, he didn't have to do that. He just kind of let it ride, and he would say it. And the judge was at a point, I think, where he didn't require somebody to say objection. He just kind of knew that was a fact. And at one point, he stopped close to 3/4 through, and this took all yesterday morning. All Monday morning and afternoon, and into part of Tuesday, the short part of Tuesday. But there was nothing as he presented these that the judge couldn't say, "That's Mr. Mccracken, that's your opinion. That's not a fact." He kept trying to explain it to him. And he wasn't being successful because Mr. Mccracken had an argument that basically said, well, if I present it here and I have a paper that says, here's where my search area was, that's a fact. Or where the treasure was, that's a fact because I went and I saw the treasure. And the judge had to explain to him, no, that's a bunch of opinions that you have. Unless you have physical evidence, unless you A, have the treasure, or B, pictures or video of you recovering the treasure, pulling it out of that hole, those are facts that are acceptable as evidence. But you saying you saw a hole, there was a brown object in it, and you believe that it was the treasure chest, those are all opinions. And so it didn't go well, but he had to go through every one of those. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Summer gets to cross-examine him because he is a witness. And Mr. Summer started implementing the theory of his case, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. It was several hours, but it was reduced to 3 critical elements that I'm going to show you. This was kind of the strangest place in the whole trial. The judge gave Mccracken, because he's acting as his own attorney, the opportunity to redirect, meaning, do you have any questions or other things that you want to ask yourself after the cross-examination? So he didn't have anything. Mccracken was getting progressively more quiet, but at the same time, progressively more combative, not loud and screaming, but he would interrupt. And Mr. Summer had to warn him never, I guess it's not admonish him, and would say things like, please let me finish my question before you answer. And the court, the transcriptionist would stop him because he was speaking with an accent, and he would move away from the microphone, and she would have to stop him and ask him to repeat his response or something like that. So it wasn't the best of situations. So they finished that, and then Mr. Summer stood up. The judge asked him, do you have any witnesses? And he named 3. Summer stood up and he named 3: Zoe Old, Kelly Old, and Shiloh Old. And Kelly leaned over, touched him on the arm, and said something to him. And he said, Your Honor, may we have a moment? I need to talk to my client. Sorry, my client. So they stepped outside. They came for, 2-3 minutes. They came back in, sat down at the defendant's table, and Summer stood up and he said, Your Honor, I only have one witness. Zoe Old. So they had decided not to call Kelly or Shiloh up. And my guess is that Zoe probably went out and wisely said, there is no reason to put any other members of this family my family through this bullshit. I don't know what she said, but I'm sure that's kind of the conclusion they came to. They knew at that point Mccracken didn't have much of a case. And so Zoe went up and he asked her some questions. And this is where I thought the critical stuff came out, where I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Then they gave Mr. Mccracken the opportunity to cross-examine. And he asked a couple of questions that I thought were relatively self-serving, but it was, and she answered to the best of her ability. But at some point, he said, "I apologize for causing you pain." And if he had stopped at that point, it would have been okay. But then he said, "I was in a lot of pain myself." And I think that just set Zoe off. And she said, "Shame on you. Shame on you." The judge admonished her because it's not a conversation, but it was her opportunity to kind of get out her feelings. Just before that, she mentioned that she had lost her father and a mother in a 27-day period. And since then, she hasn't even had time to grieve or mourn. She's had to deal with this case. So she wasn't really happy with this guy. And I'm glad she got the opportunity to do that, even if the judge did admonish her as a result. I mean, there's no damage done. But it was a very dramatic moment in the case, and it was close to the end. So then they went to closing arguments. Mccracken made a closing argument of less than 5 minutes, kind of repetitive of his opening argument. Still nothing with his theory of the case or his findings and conclusions. And then we went to the decision of court. So that was the big difference. That's why it went a day and a half. It was a bench trial. There was no jury involved. So all these decisions were going to be made by the judge. So let's go to Mccracken's theory of the case. And I just took and summarized this because it gets progressively more rabbit holey, is that a word? So here's his theory of the case. Forrest Fenn hid the treasure near the Rio Chama in 2010. Mccracken developed the, quote, what he referred to several times during the trial, the perfect solve, unquote, while he was still in the UK. So he resolved all 9 clues of the poem without ever leaving the comfort of his living room in the United Kingdom. Mccracken followed his solve. So he came here in April of 2014, followed his solution to the location where he believed the treasure was hidden. And then he started talking about his solution and how it kind of worked out. So, but unable to reach the treasure. And what I mean by he got to the place where he thought the treasure was, he found a hole that he said was 8 inches high and about 8 inches across. And he could see down in the bottom of the hole that there was something that looked like brown metal. So he put his metal detector down there and got a ping on it. Then he duct taped his smartphone to a stick and put it down there and got some pictures and some video of an object that looks like it's brown and it's rectangular. To me, it didn't have a metallic thing, and he was convinced that was the treasure, and it was stuck in the hole further than arm's length. The judge, Mr. Summer, asked him why he didn't get it, and he said he gave several reasons. He was afraid of snakes. He was claustrophobic. He didn't want to put himself at risk for pulling it out, so he left. He left what he assumed was the treasure, left it there, and came back later in the spring. And that's when he realized the treasure had been moved to another location. He assumed, this was his assumption, he assumed that Forrest Fenn, because he was communicating, he sent, over this period, he sent Fenn thousands of emails. And so he assumed that Fenn realized that he was close. These are all his assumptions. They turn into opinions. That Fenn believed that he was close to finding the treasure. So Fenn came out at this point, age 84, followed the clues to this small nook, if you will, in the rocks, and took the treasure out and hid it someplace else nearby. And then added clues to the blaze, added more clues to the blaze so that someone else could find it. So this went on for several tries. And in each try, the result was that he would find the location, see something that looked like the box, not move it, write Fenn, and then Fenn would come out and move the treasure again. Well, this continued all the way through at least December of 2021. or 2020. It was difficult because, of course, Fenn was getting progressively older. There was Mr. Summers on his examination would ask him, "Wait, this is a 85-year-old man, 87-year-old man. How do you think he does this?" Well, he made this really neat response that elicited kind of a chuckle from the crowd. He said, "Well, he's very tall and skinny, so he could do that. And Mr. Mccracken is shorter than me, and nowhere as broad as me." So if Forrest Fenn could have done it, Mr. Mccracken, sir, I could have done it had I followed through. So anyway, from that point, Fenn continued to move the treasure, always flummoxing Mr. Mccracken. And then beginning in 2014 and through yesterday or Sunday of this week, Fenn continued to harass and stalk Mr. Mccracken to the extent that he had put up spy cameras in his houses. And he just said houses, so I imagine the one in Florida and the one in the UK and the houses of Mccracken's girlfriend. And I use girlfriend in quotes because Mccracken believed he had a relationship with one of the two women that I described before, the younger of the two. He believed he had a relationship when Mr. Summers said, "Tell me about that relationship." And he said, "Well, we spoke." And Summer asked him, "How many times did you actually speak to this woman?" He said, "Once." And he said, "How long did you speak to her for?" He said, 15 minutes. And Summer did the incredulous look of, "And she's your girlfriend?" Right? Explain that. So he believed, and he would respond by saying, "I believe she's my girlfriend." That's his response was a matter of belief for almost everything. But beginning in 2014 and through to yesterday, Fenn continued to harass and stalk Mccracken's girlfriend, including Mccracken's allegations of the rape of Mccracken's girlfriend by Fenn. And he said that with such a straight face that it put me in shock, and I'm sure it put members of the family in shock. It wasn't the first time that he heard this because he had written this before. For all of the above, so all of that hiding of the treasure chest, he no longer wanted the treasure chest. He wanted cash in damages in cash for all his trouble and effort and the money that he had put into the chase, going back and forth between the UK. He said several times that he had bankrupted himself, that he had spent all his money, that at one point he had to write or contact his mother to buy him a plane ticket back to the UK because he couldn't afford it. And most recently, he said that his tax consultant had written him and saying he can't pay his taxes this year, that he's going to have to loan him the money to pay his taxes. So he thought he was entitled to cash from $5 to $10 million in cash from Fenn's estate for, quote, damages, unquote. We're going to get to a problem associated with that, but that's his theory of the case. That's what he presented. And he presented what he claimed were facts in support of that. What you realized is that what he presented was opinions. Now, I want to take a little side note here because this touched a chord for me. He kept referring to this as the perfect solve, his perfect solve. It was the perfect solve. It had to be there because it was the perfect solve. So this was 2014. So the perfect solve started with, according to the New Mexico fishing regulations, warm waters halted below El Vado Dam. Now, not a lot of you knew me before 2017, but my warm waters halt theory goes back to 2013, and I'll prove it to you in just a minute. So there. The Rio Chama formed and warm waters halted just below El Vado Dam, and in the New Mexico fishing regulations, that's true. Now, he must have written that to Fenn because there was a point that Fenn said warm waters halt is not associated with the dam, but this was later, after he was investing so much time. The Rio Chama formed the canyon down. Homa Brown was the El Vado Ranch, where the ranch store had the New Mexico record brown trout mounted and hung up on the wall, Homa Brown. And then the put-in was a put-in for the rafters and kayakers just below that little house on the Rio Chama. And at this point, I think I looked at Christy, like over to her like this, and she looked at me like that. That was, wait a minute, that's my solution. Right up to that point, that's Toby's first 2013 Rio Chama solution. So I wanted to prove that to you because you probably saw videos of me talking about that first solution. But back then, I had a blog called A Gypsy's Kiss, and I was documenting my treasure hunt for the Fenn treasure. So I'm going to switch this over now. Now, this first one is really difficult to see because the Wayback Machine uh, doesn't pick up the original document. But here is a blog post in November of 2013, November 23rd, 2013, called Understanding Where Warm Waters Halt in New Mexico. Then there was, in late 2013, images of the Rio Chama recon, including below the dam taking a GPS reading and photos. The river was running low at this point, et cetera, et cetera. So not only had I come up, my first solution was the Rio Chama, on the Rio Chama with the warm waters halt definition, and the house with the fish and the put in below the home of the house, etc. But then in 2014, early January of 2014, I did an even bigger blog post on where do warm waters halt? And it was an argument with myself about how do you figure out where they halt? Not just what warm waters are, but how do you figure out what he means when he says halt? And it brings back everything, including in New Mexico, the State Game and Fish Department publishes regulations that define boundaries between warm waters and trout waters, not cool waters. That's an interesting distinction. My research indicates there are no compatible definitions in the difference in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. They all use warm water fish and cold water fish, making New Mexico unique in this respect. You can see how I got hung up on this as my thing. But here's somebody up on a stand saying, basically reading my solution, my failed solution out loud. And if you don't believe me, what I did was so here it is. This is, I'm going to scroll in and out here. Okay, that's El Vado Dam. Warm waters halt right there. There's your canyon down. They go right to here. That little store right there is the El Vado Ranch Chama River RV Park and Storage Shore, when you can go, where you can go get in, fishing lures, beanie weenies, and potato chips. And then there's the put in right there is the put in for the below the home of Brown. Now, the only difference is no place for the meek for me was this suspension bridge right there that gets you to the other side of the river. Here's the other interesting thing about that is once you're on the other side of the river, you're on a block of land so that this land here is BLM and this land here is, if I remember correctly, Chiricahua Apache land. So you don't want to get in there. But anyway, I'm listening to this guy talk about my solve like he made it up, the perfect solve. And I'm going, well, that wasn't the perfect solve. It was just my first failed solve. So put that in your smoking pipe. Is this a time you and your son got stuck in the other side of the river? Well, it wasn't me getting stuck. Yes. As a matter of fact, I should have some pictures here. I should show you. Well, you can see it.
When it rained and you got stuck in the mud and
yeah,
you had to
right
spend
there.
the night in the truck.
Right there. That's us. We changed dramatically, and there's Jason on the other crossing the river, and there's us stuck in the mud. Because what we did is we found a forest road that entered from the other side of the river, went through, because it was a forest road, it went through the tribal land and came to the other side of the river. And we thought, ooh, let's be sneaky and go that way. Thankfully, it was hunting season, and these crazy drunk hunters used their 4x4 to pull me back up the side of the mountain at about what felt like 50 miles an hour. I was just slinging on that chain all back and forth. And at the top, I knew there was a big boulder sitting there. And Jason was standing. I said, you want to go with me? He says, no, I'll go with these. I'll wait at the top, And he said that was the scariest moment when he saw me in that boulder in a cliff. He thought there was just no winning here. So yeah, that was my first failed solve of dozens. Okay, so let's go back here. So wait a minute, that's my solve. The perfect solve is the one that my first solve that failed that he happened to implement in April 2014 after mine occurred in late 2013 and 14. So Summer had a more pragmatic theory of the case, right? This was Summer's theory of the case, and you can see how it differs from Mccracken's. Summer's theory of the case was the following. Fenn hid the treasure in Wyoming in 2010. Stoof found and recovered the treasure from the same location in June 2020 in Wyoming. Fenn gifted the treasure to Stoof in June 2020. Fenn died in September 2020. And then he asked the judge, he said he was going to ask the judge to dismiss Mccracken's claim. Did I cover that? What do you, I don't think let me go back. Yeah. Let me go back here. Yeah, so Mccracken's claim was he was entitled to $5 to $10 million in cash from Fenn's estate for damages. So Summer said, here are the facts as we present them. And he was presenting that so the judge could make a decision. Well, if Fenn died, if you have a death certificate that said Fenn died in September of 2020, how could he be stalking you in 2022? All right. So the estate is entitled, what Summer said, the estate is entitled to compensation for attorney's fees and punitive damages for what he continued to repeat as abuse of process, meaning he was taking advantage of the process. And in several situations, he got Mr. Mccracken to admit that what he was committing was a form of blackmail or extortion. And he finally got him to say he was committing a form of blackmail. Now, that may end up in a completely different, that would have to be a criminal trial brought by somebody who had jurisdiction. I don't know if that would happen. So he said he's going to be, should be awarded damages for abuse of process and reckless and malicious behavior. And what that means is you've actually caused people pain and heartache as a result of what you've done, and that you should pay punitive damages for that. We're going to show the evidence. Summer claimed at least $33,000 in attorney's fees, but he qualified it and he said that is through the end of May. That doesn't include June, which will require has required a lot of effort on our part. He makes $250 an hour. He said they've been paying it out of these proceeds from the estate, so it's costing them money. That means there's less for Kelly and Zoe and the other members of the family. And so it could go as high as $50,000. And in addition, he wanted $200,000 in punitive damages. And then he mentioned that he was pursuing this strategy right up until the day before trial, meaning Sunday. On Sunday, Mccracken sent Summer an email with his same demands. If you settle now, I won't go public with all these things that I've said happened. Summer did the smartest thing. Now, a lot of attorneys would have done this, but Summer did the smart thing. He wrote an email back and saying, let me see if I understand this straight. And he listed out the threat and the claim. You mean if I don't settle with you today for $5 to $10 million, you're going to do this and this and this and this. Is that correct? Mccracken responded, yes. So he basically admitted to extortion. Mccracken, when he was presented that, Mccracken said he was just trying to get justice. He thought it was justice for him to get this $5 to $10 million because he was entitled to it. And so the only pressure he had to lay on the estate was the fact that he had all this malicious information and he would distribute it. And at some point he was caught in the crossfire because he was trying to make an argument that Forrest Fenn was still alive. And I wrote down one of the last sentences he said. And it was, let me just go back. I don't believe Forrest Fenn is dead. It was literally one of the last things he said in his case before they go to the end of trial. I mean, it was just like, what? I won't get into it. So $200,000 in punitive damages. He was pursuing that strategy right up until the Sunday morning before the case. Summer set up a trap for him. He fell for the trap. And so he had that evidence that what he was doing was committing a form of extortion. So here's where it gets weird. In order to support your theory of the case, you have to have evidence. Mccracken provided literally zero in the way of evidence to support his theory of the case. Nothing. He provided no rationale and no evidence to support his claim of damages. So for example, if he could prove that he took 100 flights over, he had 20 nights of hotel rooms, and he had to support this woman and buy her a ranch or whatever, he has to provide evidence that he has spent all that in his failed attempt to find Fenn's treasure. That's where the damages comes from. And then he has to prove that Fenn was intentionally keeping the treasure from him, and that's why he was entitled to his damages. There was literally not one iota of evidence that substantiated his theory of the case. It was opinion, and that's why there were so many objections on Summer's part, to the extent that the judge finally said to Summer, let's just call this a blanket objection. And then the judge handled it from that point forward. And he would just say, Mr. Summer, that's not evidence, that's opinion. And it was. And we have that piece of paper. As a matter of fact, we can go back and look at it, although this is going to get long enough as it is tonight. We looked at it once. It was that 8 pages worth of material where he listed all the things that he was producing as evidence. It's not, it's opinion. And his argument was that if he gives you an opinion, it is therefore fact, because he has researched it, et cetera, et cetera. He's a smart guy. There's no doubt that this guy is a smart guy. The problem is his he got treasure blindness. When we've all had it, right? When I sent my son across the swollen Rio Chama to the Rattlesnake Island, that's treasure blindness. That's what Mr. Mccracken experienced, treasure blindness. And like I said, last statement, somebody say, I started making a list just of the outrageous statements, and I have them here. I'm not going to drag you through them, but there were some statements that you just wanted to go up there and, I shouldn't even say this. You just want to say, are you nuts? Who do you think you are, Toby? Like making outrageous statements like that. So there was none. There was no support. But when Summer produced, I'm going to say, hours worth of evidence, but there were 3 important and key pieces. The 2 affidavits that were written on behalf of Fenn by his attorney and presented as evidence, because affidavits can be presented as evidence in the Erskine case, where Fenn said, I hid it in Wyoming in 2020, and Stu found it in Wyoming in the same location. I hid it in Wyoming in 2010, and Stu found it in Wyoming in 2020. And then he describes a process. So we did post those affidavits. Go back and look at them because I wanted to see them. I went back to the Erskine case and pulled those affidavits just to see. So here you have Forrest Fenn, right? He did cite the Medium article, but didn't present it. You have Forrest Fenn with an affidavit that was presented as evidence in a federal court in Arizona and is accepted as such. So at that point, you can argue against it, but the only argument that you could possibly have is a counter affidavit where Fenn wrote in his own hand or signed it and said, I was lying about that shit. That's all you can do. And that, of course, is not there. You can't say, I don't believe it. That is not evidence. That is opinion. You don't believe it. So he presented those into evidence, the 2 affidavits. I knew they were going to come out eventually. The second one was Fenn's death certificate, which they had already presented in their original submission. So they presented a certified copy of the New Mexico State death certificate. You can call it what you want, but conspiracy, because that's what he attempted to do. Oh, that's just all part of the conspiracy. The judge didn't even say anything. He went like this. I'm gonna do exactly what the judge did.
Facepalm.
Just like that. In the United States, a death certificate issued by the appropriate state agency is the law. It is evidence. And unless you can bring in the live person to prove that they're not actually dead, that's about as much as you could do. And Mr. Mccracken could only provide his opinion. I don't believe he's dead. No evidence whatsoever. And then I think the nail in the coffin was after Fenn's death, Mccracken wrote 3 letters, two. I'm going to say either 2 or 3 letters directly to Zoe, in which one of which he stated that Fenn had promised to compensate him for his effort, and that he would like to get paid cash because he didn't care about the treasure chest, and that if he were to get paid the cash, he wouldn't he wouldn't present all these ugly things to the media. And he wrote at least 2 letters like that, maybe a third, I'm trying to remember. And they had those letters, and they were presented to him, and Summer made him read them on the witness stand verbatim. And I think there were at least 2, there may have been a third. The first one had the claim that Fenn had promised to compensate him. And when Summer asked him to provide the evidence that supported that statement, he couldn't. And when he would ask him, then, are you saying that Mr. Fenn promised to compensate you for this? When did he do that? Did you ever talk to Mr. Fenn? No. Do you have an email from Mr. Fenn saying that he would do that? No. So it boiled down to, first of all, there was a lot of opinions on one side and a lot of supporting evidence on the other, but it boiled down to the fact that on one side, they were nothing more than opinions. And on the other side, it boiled down to these 3 things that were completely contradictory to what Mccracken's theory of the case was. And so the judge ruled. Matthew granted Summers' motion to dismiss Mccracken's claim. That effectively is the end of the case. I'll explain to you what can happen from this point forward. The next steps, and this is what the judge told them to take care of in the next couple of weeks. Within a week, so there are, the judge asked them to present within 1 week their supplemental findings and conclusions. And for anyone who's ever worked in the law or worked in any business where you write research reports, the end is always finding and conclusions. So you do research, you do all this analysis and research, then you report your findings, the facts that you discovered, and you report your conclusions based on those facts. Mccracken literally has nothing to work with, and the judge, I don't want to say he admonished him, advised him, Mr. Mccracken, this is not your exhibits. These are not your opinions. These are the facts of the case and your conclusions as it relates to the facts. So his thing going to be, I guess he could write a lot of paper, but he's not in a good position to do that. So they each have 1 week to present that to the court. Now that will be a document that will go into the record, so I can get my hands on it so we can see afterwards what they presented. Summer was given 10 days to provide a revised affidavit of attorney's cost. Because he said the attorney's costs were up through May. We haven't included the ones in June. So he has to literally produce a spreadsheet that says, here's how much we've spent through the end of the trial. So those are the next things that are going to happen in this trial. That will effectively bring it to an end. Now, some of these documents will go into the record. The other documents, they don't always take the binders and they'll put them into a research library. And if you want to come in and review them, you can review them and make copies, so we can go up there and do that. It is unlikely that they take I know for certain they don't take all these 3-ring binders that are presented as evidence and supporting documents, etc., and copy them. They don't do that. I don't think they even scan them. They make them available in the library, and you can go in, check them out. And there's a little room next to the court where you can go and review them and make your own notes. And I think they provide a copy or things like that. So we'll see. But generally, these documents that are small and compact and presented in the form of affidavits or motions are usually part of the court record. So we'll get our hands on that. Now, if you go to Mccracken's forum right now, Harry's Chase forum, I went there just to see kind of what his intentions were, because he's kind of been laying his soul out on that. I didn't copy them all. I copied the ones that I thought were related to what we're talking about tonight. We will appeal, obviously. Next stop, FBI to check if any of the evidence admitted was faked. I will get a default judgment on appeal if evidence was faked. Now, that's not how the FBI works. The FBI has to have a case that is given to them by the Department of Justice, or they have to have a case in which they have done necessary investigation, and then it has to be approved by the Department of Justice before they proceed with the case. So you can't just walk into an FBI office and say, I just had a case trial and I think the evidence was faked. So I'd like you to, that doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to have evidence that the evidence was faked, and then they might look into it for you. So getting the FBI involved is, the chances of the FBI involved is slim to none. Not scared or moved by Carl's demand for $200K in punitive damages. You should. That's a lot of money. And once this is assigned to you by the court, it becomes a debt that can be charged against your credit, that can be pursued by debtors, by creditors and credit companies, as well as the attorneys themselves. Attorneys don't take these things lightly. When they get a $200,000 judgment, they'll go after you for it. They take these things very seriously. I strongly recommend you do the same. Absolute crap. Going to appeal everything as I know what's coming. Mockery of justice. I watched this trial, and I didn't see it as mockery of justice. I saw it as a well-organized trial by the judge, did what he was supposed to. So some of the questions I was getting is, why did this get through? Why did his motion, which sounded kind of as crazy as some of the other motions that were dismissed, get through? The reason is, if you go back and look at all the other motions, even the one that had the 152 pages, no one made a claim. They didn't make a financial claim against the estate. They all made, like, I just want to, I have the right solved. You shouldn't even be talking about this because my solution is right. So there were no claims. Even Erskine never made a claim. He just they wanted the opportunity to speak, and that's why they were dismissed. It's a probate case. It's not a trial. Well, it is a trial it's a bench trial for a probate case. So all of those were dismissed. Mccracken is the only one that had a financial claim. Now, it was specious at best, but it was a financial claim. So the judge had to hear it. He didn't have a choice. I don't think he was happy about it, but he didn't have a choice. So my case was very strong with strong evidence. It was strong with opinions, including the video of the chest in its hidey hole. We did get to see that video, and there is nothing in that video that I would say to myself looks like the treasure chest. He had pictures of it. Dismissable is rectifiable. No, once it's dismissed, it's dismissed. You can appeal, but it is not rectifiable in that sense. Let me see. It's time the FBI investigates. I have the right to appeal. Full steam ahead on the appeal. It's time to engage the FBI, as I was defrauded. I didn't see anything in this case, and I'd like to think myself as a fair person. I didn't see anything in this case that would be considered fraud. So I'm sure he will appeal. He's going to have to find a court to do the appeal. It's going to be in New Mexico, because this was a district court of New Mexico. So it was the district court. They can go to a higher district court to an appeal. But here's the problem. So anytime someone loses a case, they say they're going to appeal. the appeal process doesn't work like that. It doesn't try to support the idea that you didn't get the result that you wanted, and so we're going to listen to you tell us again. That is not how appeal works. An appeal works, you come with an appeal, you don't even present your old stuff. You have to present new stuff that can prove to the appellate court that you were somehow cheated out of that trial by the court, the law, um, uh, uh, or the Constitution, right? That it wasn't fair to you. So if I go to an appellate court and I say, I lost this court, they say, what basis? I say, the other guy told a bunch of lies. That's not going to work. If you said, on the other hand, the judge invoked federal rules of civil procedure incorrectly, here's what he invoked, and here's what it reads, then I have a reason for an appeal. There has to be a material error in the application of law to your case. You losing a case isn't a reason for appeal. So I think he can ask, but I don't think it's going to get very far. So I think he's kind of stuck where he is in terms of that. So I think that's all I've got. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah. So let's do this before we go on. If there are any questions or about anything that I've said in this presentation, please ask them now. We still have a little bit of time. I'll give you time to do that.
The only thing I saw was people wanted to know more about the emails between Jack and Forrest.
So they were presented as evidence in the case. Now, let me qualify that. So there were several emails that Jack wrote Forrest in 2018 and a couple in 2019. And the emails, Jack was like I don't know how to describe it. He was like a giddy little kid. Hey, I'm at 9 Mile Hole and I found your father's fishing log, and 9 Mile Hole this and 9 Mile Hole that. So you have to remember that is not evidence that the treasure was at 9 Mile Hole. That is evidence that Jack was there and he was telling Forrest Fenn. There is no indication as to whether Forrest responded to any of those emails or whether Forrest confirmed at any point in time, hey, Jack, you are in the right place. So, but they were presented as a method for Summer to show that Jack Stoof, the eventual finder of the treasure, was not looking in New Mexico. That's why they were presented as evidence. It wasn't looking. The guy that found the treasure was not looking in New Mexico. He was looking in Wyoming. In this case, 9 Mile Hole in Yellowstone National Park. So the challenge is those were reported in 2018, and Jack has written that he had some insight that occurred in 2019 that may or may have may have changed where he was looking for the treasure. But yeah, they were, and eventually, so those were presented in the book of documents, the exhibit book. We will likely not get copies of those unless somebody goes to the library, pulls that out after it's cataloged, because it takes a while. It'll be cataloged and you can go look through all that stuff and start making copies yourself. You're not going to go pay 35 cents a page for that document. They don't do that. Toby, did any of the emails show Forrest responding to Jack? None of the emails that they cited as evidence were responses from Forrest. They were one way. The ones that they presented. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means that there were no emails from Fenn to Jack presented as evidence. Peacock Jack says, ironically, it will come out someday that Jack found the chest by duct taping his phone to a stick. Probably. Lord knows I've done that, brother. I've taken my little GoPro, put it on the end of a selfie stick, and stuck it down a hole because I don't like snakes either. So, any other questions? Let's see.
Do you know anything about fishing logs? They've been talking about that all night.
Yeah. So I don't know where it came out. No. One of the emails from Jack to Forrest, which should have had a response. He said he got his hands on Forrest's father's fishing logs. Now, that's a dedicated fisherman. My dad used to keep a fishing log. I am not that dedicated. I use fish brain, actually. So I guess I do keep a fishing log. That's funny. Um, he got them. Now, if I remember correctly, somehow or the other, those belonged to Chipper Fenn, or not Fenn. He was the guy that worked with Dale, and Dale, I thought, had those logs. Jack said he got his hands on them, so somehow or the other, he must have gotten to Dale, I guess. Now, again, that is not evidence of fact. That is Jack saying he got his hands. He could have heard that Dale had the logs and started to tease Fenn with it, saying, "Hey, I got your fishing logs, and I'm still at 9 Mile Hold," etc. So we don't know. I don't think there's any other evidence that Jack actually has Forrest's father's fishing logs. He said it in an email, but it could be he said it in an email. That is not evidence. That is only he wrote an email that said he had it. So W22, Mike.
Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong one.
Okay.
It
Got a personal question.
popped up while I was clicking. Okay, there you go.
Toby, do you sense the judge was letting the trial go on longer than it should to educate Mr. Mccracken? No. I think that the judge was damn tired of this trial probate case going so much longer than it intended to, with interference by the federal government and depositions here and subpoenas there, and women who wanted to have nothing. There are affidavits from those two women that Mccracken was going to bring in as his witnesses that basically said, this guy's nuts. We don't know Forrest Fenn, and we don't know what he's talking about. But to the end, Mccracken insisted they would make good witnesses for him. So I think the judge just wanted to go. I think he was being under the law. He was being as patient as a judge could be. But from the point, there was a point several weeks ago where where the feds asked for an extension, and he basically said, "No, I'm not going to give you an extension. If you can't do it in the next week, we need to get on with this trial because we have to get it done in June. There's only certain available dates in June. We got to get it done by then." So no, I didn't get a sense he was. But I think part of it was the fact that once Mccracken starts producing his quote evidence unquote, he has to listen to it no matter how long he goes on, and he has to have at least that to do it. So no, I don't think. People say the judge was just giving a break. No, the judge was following the law. There was a claim. It involved money. He has to listen to the claim, and he has to do a fair job of listening to everything. Now, what I did think was interesting is that it took him 30 seconds after Mr. Summer finished his closing argument to say, "I'm going to grant the motion." I mean, you knew it was already in his head. To grant the motion. Toby, Jack confirmed that he found the chest in the first place that he searched in May of 2018. Was there any details pertaining to that month or anywhere else he searched? No, not as it was presented as evidence in any way. Now, remember, the only time, so there were 2 times when Jack's name has come up. Well, 3 times. The first was when he was supposed to be deposed, and that was delayed by the feds. Then they were hoping to get him as a witness. That didn't happen because I think what Mr. Summer finally realized. So Jack was there at the behest of Mr. Summer. It was him that wanted to depose him. So that was the second time he came up. Well, okay, we're going to bring him in as a witness. That didn't happen. Mr. Mccracken could have subpoenaed him as a witness, but then he would have had to pay his travel expenses because the judge ordered that all the witnesses had to be in the courtroom, no Zoom meetings. And then the third time he came up was when Mr. Summer, proving that the finder was looking in Wyoming, read some of the emails that Jack was sending to Forrest. Now, I don't know how many of those emails he actually had. He read, I'm going to say, 10 or less, right? And like I said, they sounded like a giddy Jack. Oh, I'm looking in. Oh, look, I crossed the river. And, he was basically trying to get, as we all were I didn't do much writing to Fenn. As we all were, we were trying to get Fenn to respond and say, "Hey, buddy, you are in the right spot. Keep going." It sounds like those kind of emails that Fenn would probably get thousands of. I meant in the emails there was a May 2018 email in the discovery where Jack admitted to being at 9 Mile Hole in May of 2018. Yes, that is true. They were all from that period. All the emails that were presented in the case were from around that period, May 2018, and at 9 Mile Hole. Now, there was some Christmas card that appeared, either or two Christmas cards, one in 2018, 2019, that elaborated on that, but I don't recall them being presented as part of the case, as part of the, they might be in the document, they might be in the exhibits, but the ones that he read were from that period around May. Well, let me make sure. Hold on just a sec. Let me make sure I'm not making stuff up here. Let's see, man. Let's see. What happened there? I got to go back. Okay, Exhibit P, P1 through P10. Emails produced. Emails from, Mccracken. Hang on. Let me see. Emails from Fenn. Just give me 1 second. I'll try and find it. If I can't, then. So we have to go through each one of these exhibits. Emails to Forrest Fenn. Hang on. No, that's wrong. Mccracken. I'll find it and I'll post it in the comments below exactly what I wrote about them because my notes are just. Let's see. Here, let's see. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Okay, Exhibit A, part of the discovery, all the emails between Jack and Forrest in 2017. I'm sorry, not 2014. Did I say 2014? It's 2017.
So 2018 is what you said.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, 2018. Stoof had been at 9 Mile Hole but came up empty. Then he had a breakthrough. And then let me see. In July of 2018, Stoof wrote Fenn that he found a shovel and some bones, I think, in the area around 9 Mile Hole. Fenn wrote him back and said, "You don't want to be digging up on government land, especially National Park Service land." Then he sent him a Christmas card at the end of 2018. Mccracken said that the emails are fictitious and that Jack Stoof was a paid actor. That's how that came back in there. So, your moderator, Hooli, is willingly letting a troll impersonate my real account, Bobby Brass. What is going on there? All right. What is going on? What's going on with this lady? Betty Crocker, Tony, it's Toby. Shelley, you are losing a viewer because of it. Okay. Hooli pretty much knows what she's doing. We trust her with what she's doing. Treasure Warriors, that was the breakthrough. A breakthrough would indicate a change. What change are they? Yeah. So to me, Otek, that's what I meant. If Jack admitted and confirmed to finding the chest at a place where he first went to boots on the ground in May of 2018, and specifically 9 Mile Hole, doesn't that confirm 9 Mile Hole? Yes, it would if that's what he had admitted. There is no admission of that in any of the emails that I heard. There was no, I don't think he would admit that, right? So the emails say he was searching at 9 Mile Hole, and the impression you get was that he was giddy about it. So we'll have to wait for those emails to look through them once they get them. So I will be Treasure Warriors. Ben and Ashley have invited me to be on their program on Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and they're going to do a panel, and we're going to have a bunch of more questions to answer, and I'll do the best that I can based on my notes. And if I can, I'll try and organize my notes by then. So, Toby, Jack admitted to via Jenny Kyle in 2020. Yeah, again, so what we're doing now is you have a list of things that you believe are evidence. I can't, because I don't have that same evidence, I can't agree with you. I just have to let you present your evidence, and then I'll go back and check things out. News and views. It's the sassy. I got my cookbook and already made the crab enchiladas. There are crab enchiladas in Aunt Lucy's cookbook. There are no crab.
Amazing.
Yeah. Sassy, how did you do in the Belmont? I didn't ask you. Why didn't the court recommend turning over the case to the DA for extortion? Good question. I think the extortion case, because there was a threat of, I'm going to turn this over to the media, and because the stuff was specious, right? It's one thing when I have evidence. Let's say it's one thing that if I were go to Shelley and I would say, Shelley, I have, well, let's not do Shelley, because then Wave Seeker will get upset. Let's say I had an old girlfriend and I went back to her and I said, I have pictures of you taking a shower, and I'm going to share those with your family unless you give me $500. Well, there's evidence of that. Those are, I can show her pictures, right? So I have evidence of that. And that case could be presented as a case for extortion because there are evidence and there is a fact that I write her an email that says, I'm going to share them with your family if you don't give me $500. Well, the problem with this is that what he was saying, what he was using as the recent reason for the extortion was all false. Forrest Fenn was not re-hiding the treasure. Forrest Fenn was not chasing down a young woman. Forrest Fenn was not following him around. Forrest Fenn was not putting spy cameras in his houses and her houses. So, in order for the DA to make a case, he would start by asking, where are the facts? And then he would discover that Mccracken's facts are not really facts. They're opinions, or even worse, like imaginations, right? You can't make a case on that. You can't make a case on anything other than facts. And none of what Mccracken had was facts. So I don't think any DA would take the case, even if they were presented. I doubt it would be presented. That's why I don't think, as a matter of fact, I remember somebody when we were talking, why doesn't this go to, why don't they charge him with extortion? And Summer answered it. I can't remember his answer, but it was kind of on that, there's nothing there. And I think what he was referring to was there's nothing there in the sense that none of the stuff he was claiming he was going to use. I mean, imagine this. Imagine if the Mccracken, instead of continuing with the bench trial, he had gotten tired of asking for money and not getting anything, and he started releasing all this information. Forrest Fenn was wandering around Rio Chama when he was 85. He was fooling around with a girl. Like, everybody would go like, oh, okay. Half of us would go, yep, that's my Forrest. So you can't make the claim that they knew each other. Yeah, you can't do that, JK. If you don't have evidence, if you don't have pictures of Forrest and the young woman together in compromising positions, then it's just your opinion. And your opinions don't hold up not your particularly, but opinions don't hold up in court. Let's see what Sassy did. Had Mo Donegal, Nest, and We the People 1, 2, 3. Whoa. Dang nabbit, that would have been, dang that Skippy Longstockings. Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is even if it was specious, you still, I mean, there's enough rumors and falsehoods about Forrest as it is, without putting additional material out there after he's dead, to a family that's still waiting to grieve and have been prevented from doing so by having to deal with this case. So I thought Zoe was very good. She was very, very, she was very strong I'm sure she resented having to do this instead of having to be able to mourn and grieve the loss of her parents. She mentioned it, and I think she was glad to see this part over. He can appeal. It will come to nothing, and I'm sure that that Carl has told her that. There's not the appeal will come to nothing. He doesn't have a case for appeal. So let's see. Yeah, I thought that great shame card. And she said it. She looked straight at him. She pointed her finger at him. She said, "Shame on you! Shame on you!" And the judge had to admonish her. What? Shame on you! Shame on you! You make funny. Anyway,
people just don't say that anymore.
Well, she did. I thought that was pretty good. I was impressed. That was one of the few. So that was one of the dramatic points. There was a lot of giggles when he would say stuff like I believe that Jack Stoof was a paid actor. He said that in the deposition, Zoe told him. Now you got to remember, Zoe's attorney was at that deposition. So when Mccracken conducted the deposition, he says that Zoe told him that Jack was a paid actor. And Summer objected, of course, like, no, don't be nutso. Quit being nutso. Okay, I think that's about it. So you want to play your game, Shelley?
Sure, let's do that.
Hang on, I think I even got a slide for it. Hold on.
Tell us a story in 10 words or less. What did you do that ended up getting you in trouble? The funnier, the better.
And the answer is going to be subjective. It's going to be based on what we think, what Shelley and I think the best story is, and to someone who hasn't won already. So, Packer Jack, you know what? Oops. I think it had an emotional impact on almost everybody who was involved. I think the searchers that were there could feel the amount of tension in the room and just how wrong it was. Somebody said earlier this was a waste of court time. It was indeed. It was. It had to be done, and I'm not going to argue with the courts how they make those choices. But the more you sat there on those hard wooden benches, man, my ass went to sleep about 3. I had to keep getting up to wake my butt up. Yeah, but I think it was a waste of time, but the court had to do it because of the way that Mccracken handled it. I think I feel sorry for the poor soul who's put this much effort into all of this, is not going to get anything back from it, and worse, may have a $250,000 debt to deal with. So that's a horrible place to be. Who would want that? And these are not specious. They don't say you owe $200,000 in damages and $50,000 and you can walk away and go, well, okay, I'm gone. Okay, Otak says, I once hit a mailbox with a bat and then it hit me back. Come on, Otak, is that it?
That's the story.
Give me a good story. But a real story, not a one-line punch. What do you call it from Joe? Hey, Wave Seeker. My parents found stolen Thin Mints in my jeans pocket. Look, I got kicked out of seminary. Okay, guys, I'm talking some serious stuff here. Your parents finding Thin Mints? Geez. My parents found lifesavers under my pillow. No, I want something serious. Did you get kicked out of seminary? Did your mother? Here's another one for you. One time in religious class in 7th grade, conducted by Monsignor Cazados from Spain, I said that I didn't believe that the Immaculate Conception was possible. If we all are born with original sin, why wasn't she born with original sin? Okay. He put me aside. I stayed after school. My mother was a teacher at the school. And when I didn't come to the car to go get me and the other kids go home, she came over to the classroom, asked Monsignor Cazados, why I was being held. And when he told her, she picked up a ruler and started beating me about the head and shoulders. What is wrong with
Okay,
you?
that's enough of your stories. How about the other people's stories?
Okay. Ken has one. Fell asleep yesterday, late picking up the wife in the doghouse. These guys, these are everyday things. I want the life-changing ones.
Keep
I got,
reading.
I got kicked out. It's okay. Skinny dipping, future in-laws pool. Do the math. Yeah, that was not good, John. That was not good. Skinny dipping with the babe in the in-laws pool, and they come in. I lit my sister's hair on fire. Ow. Intentionally? That's more than 10 words. Yeah, but John, I'm here and I get to tell my whole story. I could probably put it in 10 words. Got beat
But
by.
we heard your story. Let's look at other people's.
Okay, all right. Fell
The
asleep on the
purpose of
sidewalk.
this is not for
Oh,
you, Toby, to tell more stories.
oh, I like it. We could do a check mark on Kiwi's Road there. I like that one.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see. I had a meltdown over the weekend and ended up canceling a very expensive tea date with my mother-in-law. Oh, Tech, I think it sounds to me like you're making some of these things up. Who does tea dates with a mother-in-law? Got kicked out of a 6th grade for selling pot seeds. Nice. Alpine. That's a good one. Wave Seeker says, my brother pooped on Morrow Rock. Wave Seeker, that wasn't you. That was your brother. Sassy says, I got asked to leave the dorms at Pepperdine at the end of my freshman year. Wow. Troublemaker, huh? In trouble with Gallatin. Wait. I didn't go back.
To what?
Oh,
You just read that one.
in trouble with Gallatin Sheriff for being lost and injured. What is this? Bobby Brass, I still have faith in OTAC, not Treasure Warrior. He's balls deep like Cynthia. What is going on there? What is going on there? Yep, they made me upset. I don't remember why. You ain't married OTAC. And let's see. Got kicked out of 6th grade. See anything that looks interesting?
Still waiting for the best one.
For the best one?
It's coming. I can feel it.
I want to. That's Ken Blythe has the perfect analysis here. Hang on, it's not a. Let's see. I like John Robinette's skinny dipping in the in-laws pool.
Mm-hmm. Sassy had a coyote, 2 raccoons, and burned bunnies in her dorm room.
Yeah, that'll get you kicked out of Pepperdine's dorms.
Because of a wildfire.
Oh, is that why she had him there? Oh, bless her. Had dinner with Arlen Specter and asked about JFK assassination. Girlfriend upset. I don't know. That's a fair question for Arlen Specter. He was there. I mean, he wasn't at the assassination, but he was there for the hearings, I'm sure. Let's see. OTAC says, I'm thinking I'm the one that keeps people out of trouble. That's what we need more of, OTAC. John Miller takes the high road. I done things that get my wife in trouble. 10 words, guys. Come on, 10 words. OTAC says, I once ran away with my best friend and we hid from the cops and her mom under a tower of blankets. That got us a lot of trouble. Guys, I have been beat bloody for getting in trouble for doing something stupid. Come on.
Everybody's voting for the skinny dipping.
The skinny dipping?
Mm-hmm.
Give it to the skinny dipping guy. Has John won recently?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh, we did his pictures. That's why it's familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, Sassy likes skinny dipping. Let's see. Skinny dipping, future in-laws pool. Do the math. Nice. And he's got it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. Good one. Huh? Why is OTAC chasing Indy? What's going on there? Wait. There was one. I lit myself on fire. Oh, wait. Where the heck did that go?
This one?
Wave Seeker. I lit myself on fire playing Foursquare with the lighted ball. Wave Seeker, what the hell? 1, 2, 3. Too many words. I don't know, Wave Seeker, if you're just getting in trouble or you just like being ornery. Ornery, as my mother used to say. I locked myself in a room trying to change the doorknob. Ooh, that's pretty good. But Lorraine's won recently. Lorraine, I may send you a consolation prize for that one. That's pretty good. I like that. I like Wave Seeker because he tells a story and then he keeps going like, and we were playing at night. You know, he comes back with it's still beyond. Hooley says, friend and I went to Quarry and pretended to be cops on our friends. They ditched all the beers and we were scratched up badly in the woods. Yeah, I like that. Cute. Not more than 10 words, but it's a good story. By the way, Hooley sent us a gift via PayPal. I should have mentioned it. Hooley,
Wow.
thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
That
was
seems a little backwards. I mean, we should be paying her.
Yeah.
She's putting up with all this craziness tonight.
She was concerned that I was surviving on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. She thought she's going to take care of me. Let's see. Packer Jack ended the day. Whoa, what was that? Where did that go? Here we go. Packer Jack ended the date, started the second, first girl entered bar. Ooh, that will get you in trouble. There we go. What's this? XJ Chad. I shot a guy in the head with a slingshot as he was driving by my grandma's house in a van as a kid. Good story.
And then he said, I was trying to hit the side of the van. Trying to hit the side of a van.
Okay. I think we give it to John Robinette for having the best story in under 10 words.
No, he's got a follow-up.
Wait. I'm also watching this at work. Might be in trouble. All right, John. You know what John is the winner.
Where's his music or sound effects?
Oh, wait. Let me see. I don't know. I wish you would. My new Roadcaster comes in tomorrow.
Can you just hit the button?
Okay. How's that? You want applause?
Let's go. Cha-ching.
Cha-ching. Do I have cha-ching? Well, I don't have cha-ching.
No, that's just what he said.
Oh. All right, John, do me a favor and send a text message to 505-750-2744 with your shipping address and what? Oh, and tell me what you want. If you want the holiday recipes, the full recipes pamphlet with retablo cards, copy of A Gypsy's Kiss signed by me because Shelley's not in town, or a copy of Lifecast Life, which will happen to match our new series that you can register for. All right, young lady.
All right. Time to get back to work, man.
Yeah.
It's enough playing around.
So Mom's going to be home on Friday, huh?
Yes. So we had to move some furniture. Now we're going to have to interview some home helpers and figure out a way to get her home.
Oh, well, I'm happy she's going to be. I think she's going to be a lot happier because you can't leave her. You're just like the rest of them. And you can say, I'm just going to the bathroom, Mom, for gosh sakes.
All right.
All right, guys.
That's the show.
This has been a lot of fun. I hope you found it informative. Watch Shelley tomorrow on Women Conquer Business at 11 o'clock. What are you guys talking about tomorrow?
Blogging.
Blogging.
Why you should blog, how to blog, what's the best
because Jen's
blogging outcomes.
Jen's a big blogger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loves to blog.
Shelley's partner, Jen, the other half of Women Conquer Business, is a really smart lady. Not that Shelley isn't really smart, but she has kind of a different set of disciplines that she's really good at the technology side. So
that's right.
And then at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, we'll be back together.
Going at 1 o'clock.
What are we doing at 1 o'clock? We're talking about how to be a great podcast guest and what not to do and what to do. What
and
makes
it's
great.
Actually, it's going to be one of the lessons in our new Livecast Live course.
That's right.
So
if you want to sign up to be on the waiting list to get that course, go to course.livecast.life. Course.livecast.life.
Oh, that's what says. So Sassy made the green enchiladas and put crab in them instead of chicken.
Oh, interesting.
Nice. Very smart. Very cool. I'm logging at 9. Nomadic man. Is that? I'm logging at 9 Mile Hole this summer. Yeah. Don't start anything. There's a cult out there. Okay, just
watch out for the floods.
Yeah, watch out for the floods. You can't get to 9 Mile Hole. Did you see it snowed in Mexico City this morning?
That's interesting.
In Mexico, yeah. You don't think we have a problem? It's June and it snowed in Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be on at 4 o'clock on Treasure Warriors with Ben and Ashley, and I think he said Jeremy Parnell. And
interesting.
We're going to be talking legal stuff. I'm not going to do another presentation, but they're going to have questions, and I'll hopefully have answers. And I'll see if I can get more information on those emails. I took the notes that they were sent, but postcards and poem. What are the cabin postcard and poem? Sassy. So that postcard was used in the in A Gypsy's Kiss treasure hunt. That was Mariah's cabin, but I took that photo. It's in Louisiana, and the poem is the English version of the French poem that's in the back of A Gypsy's Kiss, the treasure hunt.
It's the clues to find the treasure.
Clues to find the treasure hunt. I thought you'd like to know this because they're valid postcards. You can actually send right to someone and send them to them.
That's right.
So
just have to add
when I was traveling, how hotels, you said they don't do it as much anymore. They used to have postcards in every room. I would every night I would take one of the postcards, write it to one of the kids, and send it to them. So they were getting postcards from all over.
Just one?
Well, it would always be like to the gang or to her, but every once in a while, Erica always got Earl. That's Erica. That's my daughter, Erica. She gets her.
That's right. Plus $1.
Plus $1 at Christmas time. Okay, guys. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, either at 11 o'clock with Women Conquer Business with Shelley. I won't be there, of course. Or at 1 o'clock with Messages and Methods, or at 4 o'clock on Treasure Warriors, where we're going to have some fun with the... don't be afraid to hit the like button, folks. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. We do. We had fun putting this together because I used to do these kinds of things. This is what you have to do to analyze a case when you're in pre-law at college, and that's where I was. I didn't want to be a lawyer. Isn't that funny? I wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
All right, lady.
Set of skills, though.
I will. I know you're probably going to be very busy over the next couple of days, so I won't bug you any more than I have to. Just call me if you need anything, and if there's anything I can do to help your mom make that transition, including sending her flowers home instead of the.
We'll bring them home with us.
Well, if she doesn't want to do that and she wants new flowers, she should let me know. All right.
All right.
All right, guys. I'm going to kill the banner. That means we're getting close to the end here. And I'm going to go to brand and I'm going to click on the outro button.
Hasta mañana.
Good night, guys. We love you.
Thank you for joining the conversation on News and Views, an AGK Media Studio livecast, hosted by Shelley Carney and Toby Eunice. Please subscribe and leave a comment or question, and we'll consider your ideas for future shows. Share this show with your family and friends and invite them to become a member of our community. Check the show notes for links and resources, and please come back again next week.